When you get into horizontal style play, you're gonna have to learn all the fundamentals before you can actually start learning tricks. And so in this video, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna teach you how to throw, mount, and bind your yo-yo in horizontal style play. Now, one thing that you may have already noticed is that I've cut my string just a little bit shorter for this video. And that's because when you're learning the basics of horizontal style play, it's quite a bit easier when your string is shorter. There's a couple of reasons for this. The first one is that when your string is shorter, it's easier to go faster. And the more horizontal your tricks are, the more important speed is, because that's going to keep the yo-yo on the string. It's going to help you keep everything under control. So a shorter string helps with that. The second thing is when you're first learning these tricks, they can be kind of scary because the yo-yo kind of looks like it's going to swing around and might hit you in the face. And that can happen. And so when you're practicing, getting a shorter leash on this beast just makes it a little bit safer, at least it feels safer, which will allow you to attempt these tricks without fear, which definitely helps a lot. So when we're first learning, if you think about it, there's a couple of things if you use an unresponsive yo-yo that you have to learn at the same time. Not only do you have to learn how to throw it, but you also have to learn how to mount and bind if you want to keep practicing. So what we recommend is when you're learning the throw in particular, just get out your responsive yo-yo and you can learn the throw on that first. And you can even learn the mount without ever having to worry about the bind, which can be tricky to learn on its own. So that's why we recommend starting with a responsive yo-yo. Now with the throw, pretty much the basic horizontal throw is just a breakaway, but it's done horizontal. Now if you've watched our breakaway video, you'll know that we showed it to you in two different ways. The first one was to hold the yo-yo the way that you normally do and just turn to the side and throw the yo-yo like that. And then there was a second way where the yo-yo actually faces forward. It's already on the plane it's going to be on, and you can throw like that. So with horizontal style yo-yoing, you can go with both of those options, but watch what happens if you try to go horizontal with this first method. In order to get the yo-yo to level out, see how far I have to rotate my hand around? My hand is practically upside down, and it's pretty uncomfortable to do this. And you can get a horizontal style throw that way, but just that awkwardness, and you almost have to lean in order to get it all the way over, it can make it a little bit more tricky, even if at first it seems to make more sense that way. So what we would recommend is just holding it in your hand like this. And now my palm is basically face up. It's a very comfortable position. And again, this is just the same as our setup for the other breakaway throw. And with this, it's pretty easy to get a horizontal style throw, and there's none of that discomfort. Now, if you want to kind of go in between, you could also do more of a 5A style hold where you've got your thumb around it. Again, this is a little bit more comfortable than the first method, but not quite as good as the second one. But this is just the type of thing you're going to have to experiment with and figure out what works for you. One thing that you're going to have to deal with in horizontal style yo-yoing, especially when you're first learning, that's not so much of a problem in regular style yo-yoing, is what's called precession. And precession is the tendency that a yo-yo has to turn along the axis on which it's spinning. And so just to be clear, what we're talking about is, again, we're not talking about the spin of the yo-yo, and we're not talking about the way it tilts. We're talking about its tendency to turn. And so the reason that this is a problem when you're getting into horizontal style yo-yoing is if you imagine you throw your yo-yo, and let's say you miss the first mount, the yo-yo is already going to start to precess. It's going to start to turn so that you're going to have to turn your body with it in order to line up the mount. And if you think about just a regular trapeze, you can see why this would be a problem. On your normal trapeze, all the strings are always aligned with the groove of the yo-yo, but imagine that the yo-yo began to turn on you, or we can simulate this by just having me turn around the yo-yo. If I were to try to mount the yo-yo like this, it just isn't going to happen because the strings aren't aligned with the groove of the yo-yo. So the same thing is true when the yo-yo begins to precess in off-axis. You always have to reorient yourself so that the groove of the yo-yo is facing you, and that way you can get into your mount. Now, the better that you get at horizontal style play, this will become less and less of an issue, but it's certainly something you have to think about when you're first getting started. Like we talked about in our trapeze video, while you're working on the breakaway, you might as well be working on your first mount trick. Same thing is true with horizontal style play. While you're working on the throw, you might as well be working on the mount there as well. So In one sense, you could think about it just like the trapeze, where you can go right from the throw immediately into the catch. And there's really nothing wrong with that, but horizontal players have developed a technique that's called the banana turnover that gives them a little bit more leeway, I guess, when getting into this trick. And I think as a new player, you'll find that it is extremely helpful. So in order to do the banana turnover, what you're going to do is you're going to position your hand forward with your thumb facing down. And what's nice about this is you have this whole area right here to catch the string when you throw it across. And like we said, when you're first getting into this, everything can feel kind of out of control. This is a way to gain a little of that control back. So what you're going to do is you're going to throw the yo-yo, and the string is going to go into this part of your hand. And if you think about it, if you were to just pinch your thumb, the yo-yo is just going to orbit underneath. And so that's one good way to practice your throw, is just allow it to do a couple of pinwheels and then bring the yo-yo right back. Now ultimately what you want to do is you want it to pinwheel once, and then as the yo-yo passes under the string coming off of your yo-yo hand, you're going to lift your thumb up, transfer the string onto your first finger, and attempt your first mount. If you think about it, the banana turnover functions in horizontal style play the same way that the pinwheel can function when you're getting into your side mount tricks. And what I mean by that is it allows you to control the speed of the motion of the yo-yo, even coming off of a hard throw. What you'll notice me doing a lot of times, especially when I'm throwing the yo-yo very hard in the tutorials, is I'll do one pinwheel, and that allows me to slow the yo-yo down so that I can control it when it gets into the pinwheel, instead of having all that speed go right onto the trapeze. And the same thing is true, maybe even more so, in horizontal style play. And part of that is that it's really important to have a powerful throw, so it's good to have a technique where you can slow that motion down so that you can get the yo-yo onto the string. Now, the reason it's so important to have a powerful throw in horizontal style play is because the faster the yo-yo is spinning, the more it's going to resist that tendency to precess. It's going to resist turning, and it'll also resist the tendency for the yo-yo to change its tilt. Now, this is something that I've seen a lot with new players. You always tell them when you get into horizontal, you've got to throw hard, and everybody knows that. But because the throw is new, a lot of people think that they're throwing their yo-yo as hard as anyone's ever thrown anything, but in fact, their throw is actually really weak. And because it's weak and slow, the yo-yo is already going to start to precess on them. It's going to start to turn. And so by the time they get set up for their mount, their yo-yo has already turned so much that they're not going to be able to line up the mount the way that they want. And so the banana turnover can also help us with this. What you can actually do is you can do a couple of pinwheels quickly under your hand, and what that'll do is it'll control that precession. It'll keep the yo-yo at the same angle in line with your body, and that way it's lined up perfectly for the mount. One final thing to think about before switching over to our unresponsive yo-yo, and that's about controlling tilt. When you first get into your first mount, a lot of times this is what's going to happen. You get it on the string, and the yo-yo all of a sudden rights itself. And that can be really, really irksome because you're trying to keep it on that horizontal plane. And really there's nothing new to learn here, it's just being applied in a different way. So again, if you think about the trapeze, what we already know is that if you push the string into the side of the yo-yo, that's going to cause it to tilt. Now, what's a little bit different when you get into horizontal style play is if the yo-yo is just sitting in a mount, the strings are always going to be pushing into the side of the yo-yo, but you still have a level of control. So watch this. You can actually balance your hands in such a way so that the lean on the yo-yo pretty much stays still. If you find that the yo-yo is constantly leveling itself out, all that means is that your yo-yo hand is being held just a little bit too low. On the other hand, if you find that it keeps going more and more horizontal until it falls right off the string, that means that your yo-yo hand is just a little bit too high. And so as you're doing tricks, this is going to be kind of a repeated theme that you'll find that the yo-yo is going to be constantly changing tilt and twisting in ways that you don't want it to. And just remember, all the physics are exactly the same. It just has to do with the placement of your hands, how the strings are pushing into the side of the yo-yo. And it's a good idea with just this first mount to kind of get control of that and figure out what's going on so that you can control how the yo-yo sits on the string, and that'll help you out as you move forward. Once you've mastered the banana turnover and you can consistently get the yo-yo onto the string, you're ready to learn how to bind, which means that you want to switch over to your unresponsive yo-yo. Now the bind is going to be a little bit more tricky to learn than just getting the yo-yo onto the string. And so there's a couple of things that we recommend you think about when you get to this point in the trick. The first one you may have already seen me do. Sometimes when I'm doing the tricks, they're all the way up here and they're almost perfectly horizontal, but a lot of times in this video, I keep it a little bit lower, almost at like a 45-degree angle. When you're practicing, it's a good idea to do that because it gives you more time to think about the trick. It's not quite as risky. The yo-yo isn't constantly falling out of the string. So when you practice, you can kind of learn them at that angle and then bring them all the way up when you want to show off to other people. The other thing is once you start getting into more complicated tricks, and I would say in horizontal the binds qualify, you absolutely have to master them perfectly first, almost mindlessly, on the regular mount. And so in this case, these are all going to be side mount tricks. Once you can do them without thinking about it at all, then you can put it in a horizontal position because you're already kind of distracted managing all the stuff in horizontal style play. You don't also need to be thinking about figuring out how the trick works. So in this video, what we decided to do is we wanted to teach you 3 different alternatives that you can use when first learning to bind horizontal. And the reason is, it's because none of these binds are perfect. They all have advantages and they all have disadvantages. And so we figured we'd just let you choose which one you thought would be the best to learn. It's a good idea to learn all of them, of course, but you probably want to use the one you're already most familiar with on the side mount, and that'll get you where you want to go as quickly as possible. So the first one is the bind that we taught at the end of our Man on the Flying Trapeze video, and that's just this one where you hook the string with your yo-yo hand. And on the trapeze, you can see that this one is pretty simple because of the way gravity handles the yo-yo. It just sits there waiting for you to hook it. Unfortunately, with horizontal style play, that doesn't happen. As soon as you're ready to hook it, gravity's already pulling it out of the plane that you need it in order to land the trick. So you can see it's already way lower than you want it to be, and then of course you'd have to go around chasing the yo-yo to set up your next bind. So there's 2 ways to deal with what gravity is doing to you. The first one is to just try to do it so fast that gravity isn't an issue. And if you can do it fast enough, it'll still be on plane enough for you to land the trick. The one downside to doing this bind quickly is if you happen to miss the string coming off of your yo-yo hand, it's pretty easy to lose control and have the yo-yo come back and hit you in the face. So if you don't want to take that risk, you can cheat it a little bit by just allowing gravity to pull the yo-yo down and then you pop it back up and hook it with your hand to make the bind work. Now, the one downside of this is that when you allow gravity to pull the yo-yo down, the string's going to push up against the side of the yo-yo, which will cause the yo-yo to precess. So you're going to have to turn with the yo-yo when you do this particular method so that you can line up the string perfectly and hit that particular bind. Now the second bind and the third bind are from our go-to binds video. So the second one is this right here. And again, if you look at this on the side mount, you can see that you can kind of take your time with it because when you set up the bind before you reverse the motion, gravity is just going to hold it here in place and then you can finish the trick. Now the nice thing about this is that it's a very consistent bind, and on horizontal it's very consistent as well, so a lot of players end up defaulting to this particular bind. But in that directional change, again, you don't have the luxury of just kind of letting it hang out while you think about the rest of the trick. You need to do that more quickly. And so if you've really mastered this particular bind, it's not too tricky to get it down, it's just something that you have to think about. Also, when it's changing direction, gravity, again, it's going to be pulling the yo-yo down, so you're going to have to lift the yo-yo back up just a little bit. In no time, that'll feel natural, but it's just one more thing to think about, and if you're just learning these tricks for the first time, that can throw you off a little bit. So because of that, the third bind might be the bind of choice for a lot of players, and again, this was in our go-to bind video, and that was this one right here. And the nice thing about this is that this bind is really straightforward, but just like we talked about in that bind video, it's also a bind that's a lot harder to get consistent and to hit that bind without getting a tail. But the nice thing about using it in horizontal tricks is that it really works with the flow of the trick, because once you get it set up for the bind, you just swing your arms over in the same direction and you can do the rest of the trick. Now, this is going to take some practice to land this without a tail, but again, you're just getting started here, and so it's fine to work with each one, figure out which bind is going to work for you, and kind of master that one before you move on to the others. Now, horizontal style yo-yoing, like a lot of yo-yoing, it takes a lot of practice. And so even if you understand and digest everything that we say in this video, it's still going to take a lot of work for you to be able to hit the tricks the way that you want and to start to feel comfortable with it. But the tricks are so impressive, and once you get good at them, it's a lot of fun for you, and it's a lot of fun for people who get to see you do those tricks. So it's definitely worth putting in the time. So this is how you get started with horizontal style yo-yoing.